Hey everyone, and welcome back. So today we're going to be doing a quick review for GLEYLANCER on the Nintendo Switch. Now this game is a remaster of a side-scrolling shoot-'em-up from the Mega Drive era. It was released for Nintendo Switch on October 15th of 2021, and it currently has a regular sale price of $6.99 on the Nintendo Switch eShop. It is published by Radalaika Games, and it has a download size of only 29 megabytes. As we get started, don't forget that if you do like the content, to please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you aren't already. Now, just before we get started on our standard review points, I do want to start by mentioning that if you were unaware, in its original Mega Drive, or what we called the Genesis format, GLEYLANCER never received a Western release. It was a Japan-only exclusive. It was, however, released on the Wii U Virtual Console, although not with as many refinements as we have here in this version. Now, you do have the option to play the game in its original format without the quality of life upgrades, which is always an option I really appreciate that they include. However, it won't be the main focus of today's review, rather focusing on the remastered upgrades. Now, we all know shoot-'em-ups sometimes have no storyline at all, but this is not the case for GLEYLANCER. Although nothing groundbreaking and definitely not the main focus of the game, we do get somewhat of a motivation for taking on our challenge. The game opens up with a 5-minute cutscene, very inspired by 90s anime both in art style and flavor. We find out our main character, Lucia, sees her father's ship being abducted by invading aliens and decides to hijack a prototype starfighter called the GLEYLANCER in an almost hopeless effort to free him. Now, as the game evolves, you will get 2 to 3 more brief cutscenes, but these are just to offer slight bits of motivation and keep the original setup progressing. Although a little generic, I always enjoy when shoot-'em-ups inject a tiny bit of storyline like this without it becoming the main focus and pulling you out of the action for too long. Now for the gameplay. As mentioned earlier, the game functions in a standard fashion for a side-scrolling shoot-'em-up, with an 11-level campaign that will have you taking down various enemies while trying to dodge bullets and obstacles, and almost every level ending with a more boss-type encounter where you will have to figure out a pattern and weakness. There are also 3 difficulty settings available, ranging from easy to hard, which will increase the enemy density as well as toughness. This is a one-hit-will-kill-you type of game, so dodging and memorizing enemy patterns is a must, especially at higher difficulties. Now, to aid you in your quest, there are various upgrades available that are called movers, which are 2 orbs that will attach themselves to your ship and give you extra firepower. Now, these movers can behave in a variety of ways, either tracking incoming enemies, firing in a circular pattern around your ship, or even a locked position. Overall, there are 7 different behaviors to experiment and have fun with. My personal favorite was the search behavior. There is also a wide variety of weapon types for these movers, ranging from flamethrowers to standard fire, or even what looks like a couple of huge lightsabers. What is one of the most striking originalities for GLEYLANCER, based on when it was released, is how certain sections of the levels depend much more about maneuvering around obstacles than the standard bullet hell setup. Overall, the level design and general gameplay are still very interesting and entertaining, even based on today's standards. Now we move to the controls. Probably the most important element that will either make or break a side-scrolling shooter is having an effective and extremely responsive control design. Now, I am very glad to report that the controls and design is extremely well implemented here, and the tweaks that were made are really benefits overall. Now, first, you can control your ship with either the left joystick or the D-pad, something I am super happy to see. Hitting Y fires your weapons, however, an auto-fire option is available. Secondly, if we start talking improvements, your ship can move at various speeds depending on your playstyle and the situation. In the original, this was mapped to one button and worked in a cyclical fashion. Here we have separate speed up and speed down buttons that are mapped to the ZR and ZL triggers, allowing you to adjust much quicker. You can now also adjust your mover behavior on the fly mid-level with the X button. And also, you can now have direct control over your movers using the right analog stick. The original controls for the game were fine and well tuned, but these small improvements end up making a huge difference in modernizing the overall feel of the gameplay. Finally, they added both save states and a rewind function, making this game very accessible for every type of player. Just do be careful, because at the easiest difficulty, if you abuse the rewind function, you can knock out the whole game in about an hour, but you'll miss out on a lot of the beauty of the game. Now for the graphics and sound. The pixel art is very 90s alien anime invasion, as I said earlier, but I find it easily stands up to today's standards, especially on the Switch with the retro-styled indie-heavy library of games available. If you did not already know that this was a Mega Drive port, I would easily believe this is a modern entry using a retro style. What really impressed me with the visuals, however, is how many options we have to customize them. First, you have the aspect ratio choice of 4:3, pixel perfect, or even stretched out full screen. But the truly amazing part is when you turn the CRT filter on, with over 8 different parameters to adjust, like scan lines, sharpness, curvature, and gamma. I have never seen so many adjustments available, and even though CRT filters aren't my favorite thing, I still have to admire the dedication put into making the best experience possible for someone who does. Since this was originally designed to run on 16-bit hardware, I don't think I need to say it, but frame rate is smooth and without issue. Now for the soundtrack, once again, it is very 90s, high energy, 16-bit auditory bliss. The soundtrack is there to keep you hyped, and it does its job perfectly. So now for the verdict, and if you're unfamiliar with my grading scale, you can take a quick look in the description of the video. And in this case, I will be giving GLEYLANCER on the Nintendo Switch an 8, putting it at the low end of a great game. Now of course, a lot of praise has to be given to the quality of the source material that this remaster is based on. The original GLEYLANCER was considered a great side-scrolling shooter for its time, although relatively unknown to Western audiences. Where I am giving Ratalaika Games, however, a lot of credit is that at the budget price that they focused on, they could have gotten away with a lazy port with almost no improvements at all, and they would have probably made a few quick and easy bucks. Instead, they delivered on what is probably the ultimate version of the game and really brought it up to today's standards, and nonetheless kept an extremely reasonable price of only $7. Now, in my opinion, this is great value for the price. So now I throw the question out to you. Are you going to be picking up GLEYLANCER on the Nintendo Switch? You can always leave me your answer down below in the comments. And don't forget on the way out that if you did like the content, please hit that like button, consider subscribing to the channel if you aren't already, and hitting that notification bell so you know when all my future content comes out. And as usual, I hope I'll see you in my next video.